The moment Felicia Okiki stepped onto the quiet, private airstrip, she knew she had lost. The black SUV headlights washed over the ground, revealing a set of footprints leading straight toward the runway. Small, hurried, desperate. Deborah's footprints. The same girl Felicia had sworn would never leave Lagos alive. The wind carried the fading echo of a jet engine, and Felicia clenched her jaw so tightly a vein pulsed at her temple. "She escaped," she whispered, barely audible, but the rage behind it made Vanessa step back instinctively. Malcolm paced behind them, shaking his head. "How did she outsmart all of you? You said she had no passport, no ID, nothing." Felicia ignored him. Her eyes were locked on the runway, on the faint shimmer of heat left by the jet that had lifted off just minutes earlier. A jet she never imagined would take that girl away. A jet owned by her own husband. Bella spoke up quietly, arms folded. "Mummy, what do we do now?" Felicia turned slowly, her voice so controlled it sent a shiver through all 4 daughters. "We find her, and we bring her back home before that child arrives. I don't care if she's in Ghana, Dubai, or the ends of the earth. No bastard will take what belongs to this family." Jessica muttered. "But Daddy—" "Your father," Felicia snapped, "has finally lost his mind, and I will not let some girl from nowhere destroy everything I've built." Amaka, leaning against the car, stared at the sky where the jet had vanished moments earlier. "So, Deborah beat us, just like that." Felicia shot her a deadly look. "She didn't beat us. She got a head start." Malcolm exhaled sharply, frustration boiling. "So what? You want to chase her across countries? The girl is pregnant. You can't hide a child forever." Felicia walked toward him slowly, each step echoing like a warning. "Oh, Malcolm, you're thinking too small. I don't need to hide the child." Her eyes gleamed in the darkness. "I just need to make sure that child never becomes a threat." Behind them, a second SUV sped onto the airstrip and stopped abruptly. Peter's lawyer stepped out, holding a sealed envelope. "Mrs. Okeki, I need a moment." Felicia didn't move. "If this is about my husband, talk to me at home." "I'm afraid you'll want to hear this immediately," he said, clutching the envelope tighter. "Chief Peter instructed me to deliver this tonight. It concerns the new will." All 4 daughters fell silent instantly. Malcolm whispered, "Ah. Problem Don land." Felicia walked toward the lawyer, her heels crunching on gravel. "Give it to me." He hesitated. "Madam, I was told to give it to the family together." Felicia snatched it so fast he flinched. She tore the envelope open under the SUV headlights. Vanessa stepped closer, tense. "What does it say?" Felicia read the first line, and her hands began to tremble. Jessica swallowed. "Mummy?" Felicia looked up slowly, eyes burning with fury. "Your father has given 80% of his assets to the child that girl is carrying." Silence. Even the wind seemed to stop. Bella's jaw dropped. 80%? Vanessa gasped. "But he doesn't even know if—" "He knows," Felicia cut in sharply, "because he planned it with her." Amaka blinked, stunned. "So that's why he protected her so much." Felicia's voice was now shaking with fury. "He thinks we are vultures. He thinks she is special. He thinks a stranger deserves the Okiki Empire more than his own daughters." The lawyer cleared his throat nervously. "Ma, Chief Peter said the trust becomes active the moment the child is born, overseas." Felicia's head snapped toward him. "He said overseas?" The lawyer nodded. "Yes, madam. He made preparations for her." Felicia didn't let him finish. She turned away, breathing like a woman about to explode. "So that's why he smuggled her out," Malcolm murmured. Smart man. Felicia swung around so suddenly, Malcolm took 2 steps back. Don't you ever call him smart in my presence again. He betrayed this family. Amaka rubbed her forehead, overwhelmed. Mummy, what now? Felicia stared at the horizon, lips tight, hands trembling, voice icy. Now, we hunt. Months before that night at the airstrip, Lagos was just noise and light outside the hospital window when Peter Okiki heard the words that split his life in 2. Chief, it's aggressive pancreatic cancer, the doctor said gently. I'm afraid it's terminal. Peter stared at the scan on the wall as if his eyes could change it. How long? With treatment, maybe months, without less. I'm sorry, sir. He heard Felicia inhale sharply beside him, felt her hand grip his arm. To anyone watching, she looked like a devoted wife. Wig perfectly laid, makeup flawless, wrapper tied neatly. Inside, she was already calculating. How do we manage this at home? She asked calmly. I don't want him staying in any hospital bed. He needs comfort. The doctor nodded. You can set up home care. A professional nurse, maybe a live-in caregiver. He'll need help with bathing, movement, medication, emotional support. Peter closed his eyes briefly at that word. Emotional. Nobody in his house had given him that in years. We'll handle it, Felicia said quickly. We'll find someone. On the drive back to their mansion in Ikoyi, the city lights smeared past the tinted glass. Peter watched silently. All his years of work, factories, properties, contracts, billions in assets, meant nothing in that moment. I don't have a son, he said, quietly, almost to himself. Felicia adjusted her shawl. You have 4 daughters in Florence. 5 daughters, he corrected softly, and not one of them cares about my companies. When I die, who carries the Okiki name? Who sits where I sit? Who protects what I built? Felicia rolled her eyes slightly. Peter, rest. Is it only son that can inherit? The girls will marry good men, and life will continue. Into whose hands? He whispered. Men like Malcolm? She didn't answer. He leaned his head back, voice weak. My greatest regret is that I worked this hard and still have no son to carry my name. Felicia looked out at the road, her jaw tight. Just focus on staying alive long enough to put things in order. In her mind, things were already in order. Everything was going to her and the girls. The next evening, Felicia gathered their daughters in the main living room. The air smelled of expensive candles and tension. Vanessa sat close to Malcolm, fingers intertwined with his. Bella was on her phone, recording a half-hearted story for Instagram. Jessica scrolled through stock prices, pretending to care. Amaka drummed her nails against the glass table. Florence lay on the couch with a blanket around her, her thin frame trembling slightly, oxygen concentrator humming softly at her side. Felicia cleared her throat. Your father is sick. Florence's eyes widened. How sick? Very, Felicia said bluntly. We'll manage it at home. He needs peace. Bella sighed. Can we still go to Dubai next month? I already told my followers. Felicia cut her a look. We'll see. Vanessa leaned forward. Is he dying? Everyone is dying, Felicia replied. Some faster than others. He just needs proper care. I'm going to hire someone to stay with him. Jessica frowned. Like a nurse? Not exactly. Felicia's voice cooled. Professionals ask too many questions. I need someone young, obedient, from a place that will make her grateful for small things. No drama, no sense. Malcolm smirked. So, one of those girls from the trenches. Amaka looked away, uncomfortable. Florence spoke weakly. Mummy, as long as Daddy is comfortable, I don't care who you hire. Vanessa squeezed her hand briefly. We'll be fine, Flo. Once Daddy shares everything properly, your hospital bills will always be covered. Florence nodded, clinging to that hope like oxygen. Felicia's eyes lingered on all of them. Greed, distraction, desperation. None of them saw their father as anything more than a door between them and his wealth. That night, she made some calls. I need a maid, she said. Age around 22. From somewhere like Ajagunle or Ajagunal side. No family with connections. Nothing. Complicated. She will live in, do housework and basic care. I don't want someone too smart. I don't want someone who can challenge me. Do you understand? A week later, they brought Deborah Wilson to the gate. On a hot Tuesday afternoon, the sun beating down hard enough to sting her skin. She stood there clutching her nylon bag, like someone protecting their last belonging on earth. Her slippers were worn down to the heel, and her eyes held the kind of tired hope only Lagos poverty could carve into a person. Felicia watched her approach with a small, satisfied smile. Perfect. Exactly the kind of girl who would never ask too many questions. Come, Felicia said sharply. Yes, Ma, Deborah replied immediately, lowering her gaze. Inside the mansion, everything felt larger than life. White floors so shiny she was afraid to step on them. Gold-rimmed furniture she dared not touch. A chandelier she had only seen in Nigerian movies. Felicia walked ahead without slowing. You'll be sleeping in the BQ. You'll cook, clean, wash anything my daughters tell you to wash, and you'll assist Chief Peter with the small things. Deborah nodded quickly. Yes, Ma. Thank you, Ma. Felicia looked back at her. Don't thank me. Just don't embarrass me. When she brought Deborah into the living room, the daughters reacted instantly, exactly as Felicia expected. Vanessa wrinkled her nose. Mummy, this one? Bella laughed. Her wig is begging for mercy. Jessica smirked. I hope she knows how to scrub toilets. Amaka didn't look up from her phone. Whatever. Florence looked at Deborah gently from the sofa, her oxygen tube visible. Hello, she whispered faintly. Deborah bent slightly. Good afternoon, Ma. Bella giggled. She said Ma. Oh, God. Felicia clapped once. Enough. She's the maid. Treat her accordingly. That was how Deborah's nightmare began. In the first week, she washed 10 buckets of clothes a day, cleaned floors until her fingers peeled, and scrubbed toilets while the daughters stood over her correcting imaginary mistakes. The most humiliating part was serving them food. One evening, Bella snapped, You're too slow. Is this how you eat in the trenches? Vanessa added, Maybe she doesn't eat. That's why she's so skinny. Even Jessica joined. Next time, kneel when you serve Malcolm. Show respect. Deborah swallowed every insult because she needed the job. Her mother's hospital bills depended on it. There was no room for pride. But everything changed the day she entered Peter's room. He sat slouched on his bed, weak and pale, trying and failing to open a bottle of water. When he looked up and saw Deborah, something in his face softened. You must be the girl Felicia hired, he murmured. Yes, sir. Help me, please. She unscrewed the bottle, held it to his lips, and watched his trembling hands settle as he drank. Thank you, he whispered. Deborah blinked, surprised. No one in that house had said thank you since she arrived. That thank you was the moment their bond began. Over the next days, Deborah continued to assist him with simple tasks. She wasn't skilled. She spilled tea twice, tangled his bedsheet, and nearly broke his medication tray. But her heart was in everything she did. And Peter noticed. One morning he said quietly, You remind me of my mother. Gentle, even when life was unkind. Deborah looked down, her voice soft. "I just try my best, sir." "You have the kind of spirit people forget exists," he replied. "In this house especially." That sentence was the beginning of the daughters' resentment. By the end of week 2, they couldn't stand her. Vanessa said, "Daddy is smiling too much around that maid." Bella complained, "It's like she's his emotional support animal." Jessica hissed, "Give her time. She'll start acting important." Amaka muttered, "Let her work. Why does everything annoy you people?" Malcolm leaned back smugly. "Those kind of girls, once you give them small attention, they start growing wings." Florence said nothing. Her illness made her quiet. But even she watched Deborah with a mixture of gratitude and sadness. But the turning point came when Deborah walked into Peter's room and found him crying. Real, broken tears of a man who carried regrets no one else cared about. She froze. "Sir, are you okay?" Peter wiped his eyes quickly. "I'm fine. It's just pain." Deborah hesitated, then softly said, "Sir, if you talk about it, maybe it will lighten small." Peter looked at her for a long moment, then said, "I don't have a son, Deborah. I'm leaving this world with no one to carry my name." Deborah swallowed. She knew how much that meant to older Nigerian men. "My daughters, they don't care about legacy. They only care about spending what I built." He shook his head. "Sometimes I feel invisible in my own home." Deborah whispered, "You're not invisible, sir." Her words broke something open in him, and from that day forward he requested her more and more. Not because she was perfect, but because she saw him. The daughters noticed, and Felicia noticed the most. One afternoon she entered his room and saw Deborah helping him adjust his pillow. Felicia snapped, "Leave the room." Deborah froze. "Ma, did you not hear me?" Before Deborah could move, Peter said sharply, "She stays." Felicia turned slowly. "Excuse me?" "I said she stays," he repeated, "and you will stop giving her degrading tasks." The daughters gasped. They had never seen him challenge their mother. Felicia's voice dropped dangerously low. "Peter, you are embarrassing me." "You've embarrassed me for years," he replied. "This girl is special. If anyone mistreats her again, I will remove them from my will." The room went silent. Deborah felt her heart pounding. She didn't want this kind of attention. She didn't want this kind of war. Vanessa muttered, "Is this Maid now our stepmother?" Bella spat. "This is madness," Jessica whispered. "He has chosen her." Amaka folded her arms. "Finally, drama." Florence whispered, "Daddy, are you sure?" Peter looked around the room with tired, disappointed eyes. "I am dying," he said, "and she is the only person showing me humanity. That's why she stays." Felicia's face twisted in hatred, a hatred she hadn't felt in years. And just like that, Deborah's life changed from suffering to danger. After that confrontation, the entire house changed overnight. The daughters didn't just hate Deborah now. They feared her. Not because she had any power of her own, but because their dying father had placed something priceless around her. Protection. Vanessa hissed under her breath whenever Deborah passed. Bella would intentionally bump her shoulder or accidentally spill juice near her feet. Jessica never missed an opportunity to sneer. "Special girl, Abby? Let's see how long that lasts." Amaka didn't say much, but even she stared with suspicion now, as if Deborah had stolen something sacred. Florence, however, was different. She watched Deborah with sad eyes that had already accepted death. Sometimes she whispered a gentle, "Thank you," when Deborah helped her fix a blanket or move her oxygen tube. It was the only kindness Deborah received from any of the daughters. But the hostility didn't matter. because Peter wanted her near him constantly. Every morning, he requested her specifically. "Deborah, sit with me. Deborah, please help me eat. Deborah, tell me about your day." She didn't understand why it made the daughters furious, but she could feel their anger like heat behind every wall. One afternoon, Bella stormed into the living room and shouted loud enough for the house to hear, "Mummy, this maid is using jazz. She's brainwashing Daddy." Jessica added, "Imagine. Daddy called her family." "Family? Us NKO?" Malcolm said coldly. "If you don't put her in her place, she'll take everything." Felicia didn't say a word. She just watched Deborah with eyes that stripped the girl down to bone. The bond between Peter and Deborah grew deeper. Not romantic, not lustful, but human. Raw, emotional. For the first time since his diagnosis, he had someone who listened. One morning, he asked her to sit beside him, while sunlight filtered through the blinds. "Deborah, do you know what loneliness feels like?" She nodded softly. "Yes, sir. It steals your voice, your dignity, your strength." He stared at the wall. "In this house full of people, I've felt more alone than ever." Deborah swallowed. "I'm here, sir." He turned to her, eyes softening. "That's why I'm grateful." She looked down quickly, flustered. "I'm just doing my work." "No," he whispered. "You're doing more than that." When the daughters noticed he no longer allowed them to assign humiliating tasks, they became vicious. Jessica cornered Deborah near the staircase one day. "Enjoy this attention while it lasts. When Daddy dies, you'll beg us for mercy." Deborah kept silent. Fear pulsed through her, but she didn't want to lose this job. She didn't want to go back to hunger. Bella folded her arms. "I swear you're playing a game. Maybe your real job is to trap rich men." Vanessa spat. "Watch. She'll soon claim inheritance." Deborah whispered, "I'm not trying to take anything. I'm just doing what I was hired to do." Vanessa stepped close enough for her perfume to choke Deborah. "We'll see." Florence's voice floated weakly from behind them. "Leave her alone." They ignored her. Around this time, Peter began teaching Deborah things no one expected. He asked her to bring the newspapers. He showed her financial statements. He explained how his companies worked, what patents he owned, how shares were divided, how assets were protected. The first day she tried to read a document, her hands trembled. "Sir, this is too big for me." "You can learn," he said. "You're smart." She blushed, embarrassed. "I only finished secondary school." "I know," he replied with a small smile. "And your WAC and NICO results? 9 distinctions. I saw your file." Her eyes widened. You checked my records?" "I check everything," he said softly. "You're gifted, Deborah. Life just didn't give you chances." She looked away, overwhelmed. "Nobody in this house values hard work," Peter continued. "They want to spend what they didn't build. But you understand struggle." Deborah felt her chest tighten. "Sir, I don't deserve all this." "You deserve more than you know." One evening, after a long mentoring session, Peter sat back in his chair and stared at her intently. "Deborah, I want to tell you something. Something important." "Sir." He took a slow breath, his voice heavier than usual. "My time is almost up. I can feel it. Every day is a reminder." Deborah shook her head quickly. "Please don't say that." "I must," he replied gently, "because I need to do something before I die." She swallowed. "What thing?" He looked her directly in the eyes, a gaze full of desperation, pain, and a man's final attempt to fix what he broke. "I want a son, Deborah." Her heart dropped. Sir, I am dying. I have 5 daughters, but none wants to lead. None cares about my legacy. When I close my eyes, everything will crumble. Deborah breathed shakily. Sir, please, don't ask me. I must, he whispered. You are the only one who can help me. Help you how? Her voice was barely a breath. I want you to bear my son. Deborah's world stopped. She stood there frozen, trembling, unable to process the weight of what he'd said. No. Sir, I can't. Her voice cracked. You can, he insisted gently. I will protect you. I will protect your family. I will give you security no suffering can take away. She shook her head violently. Your wife, your daughters, they will kill me. I won't let them. I swear on my life. Sir, please. Tears pooled in her eyes. This thing you are saying, it can ruin me. It can ruin everything. It will save my legacy, he said softly. And it will save your family. Deborah dropped her face into her palms. I'm scared. I know, he whispered. I am too. But this is the only chance I have. She looked at him through blurred vision. Why me? Because you are the only person who sees me, he said. Not the billionaire, not the inheritance. Just me. A long silence filled the room, heavy, painful, trembling. Deborah whispered, Sir, give me time. Peter nodded slowly, his voice breaking. Take all the time you need. But please, don't say no. Days passed. Deborah avoided the topic, but the weight of it followed her everywhere like a shadow. She thought of her mother's failing health, her siblings' hunger, the rent they couldn't pay, the phone calls she ignored out of shame. And she thought of Felicia, the daughters, the danger. Her heart battled her reality. Until one night she sat in Peter's room, tears slipping down her cheek as she whispered, Sir, I'll do it. Peter closed his eyes in overwhelming relief. And that decision was the decision that would almost cost Deborah her life. Deborah found out she was pregnant on a rainy Thursday morning. She had been feeling dizzy for days, barely able to eat. She thought the stress was getting to her, but when she finally gathered the courage to take a test behind the BQ, she watched 2 bold pink lines appear, unmistakable, undeniable. Her hands shook so violently the test almost fell from her grasp. Oh God, she whispered, what have I done? Her heart pounded as she slid down the bathroom wall, breath shallow. She thought of her mother, of the house rent, of Peter's face when he begged her for legacy, of Felicia's hatred, of the daughter's cruelty, and of the unborn child inside her. She knew her life had just changed in a way she couldn't reverse. She didn't realize she had left the test on the sink, and she didn't realize Jessica was standing in the doorway. Jessica gasped so loudly Deborah nearly fainted. You're pregnant? Jessica screamed, snatching the test off the sink. Deborah froze. Please, let me explain. Explain what? Jessica shouted. You trapped my father. Within seconds, the house thundered with footsteps. Bella arrived first, iPhone in hand, mouth wide open. Vanessa barged in with Malcolm behind her. Amaka stood at the back, shocked. Felicia walked in slowly, eyes locked on Deborah like a predator who had finally found the wounded prey. Felicia stepped forward. Whose pregnancy is this? Deborah whispered. Please! Bella scoffed. She's acting innocent, Vanessa exploded. Answer my mother before I slap you. Jessica shook the pregnancy test in Deborah's face. Is this Daddy's child? Deborah's eyes filled with tears. Yes. Chaos erupted instantly. Bella screamed. You slept with him? Vanessa lunged forward, Malcolm holding her back. Jessica spat. You dirty, shameless... Amaka shouted. What the hell is even happening? Felicia said nothing. She simply stared at Deborah as if calculating the exact way she would destroy her. Suddenly, a voice cut through the noise. "Enough!" Peter stood at the entrance of the hallway, holding onto the wall for balance, sweat glistening on his forehead. Everyone froze. He walked slowly toward Deborah, his expression firm despite the weakness in his body. "That child," he said, pointing at her trembling hands, "is mine." A stunned silence swept through the mansion like a deadly wind. Felicia stared at him, as if she had just been stabbed. "Peter, what did you say?" "You heard me," he said. "Deborah is carrying my child." Vanessa let out a loud, broken laugh. "Daddy, are you insane?" Bella cried. "What kind of curse is this?" Malcolm muttered, "This is madness." Jessica shouted, "You betrayed us. You betrayed Mummy." Peter lifted a shaking hand. "If any of you harms her, or this child, you are out of my will." The daughters gasped in disbelief. Deborah stood frozen, tears streaming silently. She wished she could disappear. She wished she had never taken the job. She wished she wasn't alive in that moment. Felicia stepped forward slowly, eyes blazing. "Peter, you expect me to accept this?" Peter breathed heavily, pain shooting through his body. "You will accept it, or you will leave." Felicia stared at him like he was a stranger, and for the first time in decades of marriage, she truly hated him. Life after that moment became hell for Deborah. The daughters treated her like a walking threat. Vanessa whispered threats in her ear whenever she walked past. Bella shoved her during chores. Jessica monitored her like a prison guard. Amaka watched with detached coldness. Even Florence, sweet, weak Florence, looked at her with grief, because she knew what this meant for the family. Deborah was terrified to sleep, terrified to eat, terrified to walk downstairs in case someone pushed her. One night, someone slipped a note under her door. "Leave this house or die with your bastard child." Her scream woke Peter instantly. Guards stormed into her room. Peter snatched the note, his hands shaking with fury. "That's it," he said. "You can't stay here anymore. They will kill you." Deborah cried. "Sir, where will I go?" "You're leaving Nigeria," he said. "You'll give birth abroad, safely." "Sir, I have no passport, nothing. I will handle everything." But Felicia was already 3 steps ahead. Felicia hired men to sneak into Deborah's mother's house in Ajagunal. They stole her passport, ID, school records, everything she needed to travel. Then she planted a voice recorder in Peter's study. When Peter revealed the escape plan to Deborah in secret, Felicia listened to every word and smirked. The daughters gathered that evening. Vanessa hissed, "We intercept her at the airport." Jessica nodded. "We grab her before she boards." Bella added, "Let's make it look like a kidnapping." Amaka looked uneasy, but didn't argue. Malcolm cracked his knuckles. "I know people who can block the gate. She won't leave Lagos alive." Felicia smiled. "Good. She started war. Let us finish it." But Peter had anticipated Felicia's move. The next morning he announced loudly in the presence of the whole family, "Deborah will be traveling on Saturday." Felicia and the daughters swallowed the bait instantly, and as they prepared their sabotage, Peter prepared the real plan. At midnight on Wednesday, Deborah stood in the backyard, trembling as Peter's loyal driver whispered, "Madam, don't look back. Don't answer your name. Just follow me." Tears streamed down her face as she touched her stomach. "God protect us, please." The small gate creaked open. They slipped out through the servants' exit, down the alley, into a waiting car with tinted windows, while Felicia's hired men waited at the main gate. While Malcolm watched the airport entrance, while the daughters stalked Murtala Mohammed International, Deborah was already miles away at a private airstrip. Peter had arranged everything. Her seat was ready. The pilot was trusted. The destination was safe. As she climbed the small steps onto the jet, she looked back into the dark night. Heartbroken, terrified, but hopeful. The engine roared to life. Deborah whispered, "Thank you, sir." The jet lifted into the sky. Hours later, Felicia arrived at the airstrip just in time to see the footprints. And nothing else. 3 weeks after Deborah escaped Lagos, Peter Okiki summoned his lawyer, his voice weak, his body frail, but his mind crystal clear. "Rewrite my will," he said. "Felicia gets partial inheritance. The daughters get limited shares." "And the rest, sir?" Peter smiled weakly. 80% to my son." 9 months later, in a quiet clinic overseas, Deborah gave birth to a healthy baby boy. She held him close, her tears dripping onto his tiny fingers. "You're safe," she whispered. "Daddy protected you." But as she rocked him gently, a private investigator in Lagos sent a message. Felicia received it. She opened the file. A single photo appeared. Deborah holding the newborn child. Location? Confirmed. Felicia smiled slowly. "This is not over,"